Guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we'll look at a scenario in which North America and Asia goes to war. And while the attacker is Asia, and yes, Siberia lost land, Kazakhstan lost land, and the Caucasus nations lost land. We have all the way into Southeast Asia, and Asia, and the Middle East. But not all of it, because Egypt's in a different continent. And then Turkey, only part of it's on the continent. And yes, we forgot about Cyprus. With them making 3 attempts to land, one they make in Southern California that's repelled immediately. Another one they succeed in is into Alaska. Yes, this map is inconvenient for this as they enter Alaska. And quickly take over this part of it. And they also manage to succeed in invasion in Peru, which they quickly use to take Lima and set up an area of control, with North America struggling for a bit. As in Alaska, they eventually, the front line turns when they get pushed out, with their troops eventually having to withdraw. Despite definitely having enough to take it over, they weren't able to get enough there. And on the Peru front, they start sending more troops, as this front launches an invasion of Ecuador, quickly taking Quito and moving north to link up into Venezuela, with North American troops heading down here. But the number of troops in South America is increasing pretty fast. Not exponentially, but pretty fast, with moving south into Chile and Bolivia. And they move into Argentina and Paraguay. But in the northern part of the front, they're being pushed back, and in Brazil, with their zone of control shrinking in the north. But they continue to advance south, hoping to get Chile and Argentina out of the war. But they get cut off as this area in the northern part gets pushed to the coast, and then they manage to do it again here. Eventually, these two areas are forced out, and they start pushing on the southern front. But they're still trying to get to the coast. Realizing this, the American troops decide to station over here, with South American troops on the rest, with them pushing them back. Bolivia pushes them back, and they get completely pushed out, with one front line being made here by them, as they decide to land in Siberia and take as much as they can. At this point, it's definitely harder for them to land, as this area is pretty secured, with them holding it here and then quickly moving more forces in. And with this, they start taking more of Siberia, which is basically Russia, but Russia proper is like gone right now, with them using this to move south, as they start advancing towards China. And then they decide to advance towards Mongolia, seeing them as weaker, with them quickly moving in and taking Ulaanbaatar, thinking the country will collapse to them, but due to China quickly occupying, as China and India would have really big armies. And I'm assuming Indonesia, because they have a big population, and Pakistan, North Korea have large militaries. Japan, Korea have pretty modern military, same with China, with them managing to take the northern part over. As they take all the way to here over, Siberia follows, with a big race to take as much land as possible occurring, with them taking most of the northern part. And I'm starting to move into Kazakhstan, with the military in this area increasing, but same with Asia's military, with them launching a surprise attack in Mongolia, pushing them all the way out. But with them moving in towards Astana and Kazakhstan, there's literally nothing anyone can do about this. As they take Astana. And then they go do one of their favorite things. Oil hunting. Yes, North America does that. As they land into Yemen and Oman, quickly capturing the coasts of both nations. As Saudi Arabia trying to hold them back, but not expecting this new front. There's not enough forces to hold them back. As they move in and take Qatar and parts of the Persian Gulf coast and the Red Sea Gulf, which is easier to take as most of the naval vessels aren't there. With them taking out Saudi Arabia. And then they managed to secure their front along here. And they also took Kuwait over. With China and India rapidly mobilizing at this point. With the North American troops with their strong army managing to take out most of the stand nations. And then start heading to take more out. With them crossing into China a bit and stopping, not wanting to anger China at this point too much. With to get key resources and mobilize a front line to go up into Siberia. With them managing to push to about here, but this is significant lands reoccupied. As it puts pressure on supply lines through here. Not wanting to have to deal with this, they launch an offensive into Iran. As they quickly move in and capture Tehran, and then they cut across, meaning they have another supply line. And they start moving north with them deciding to land in what's left of Turkey. With India and China holding them off for now. With them starting to move back into Kazakhstan, quickly reoccupying it. With them managing to move into these lands. With the front there stalling out. And them then managing to make a new front line in their southern front even further. And them moving back up the coast. With this becoming the front line. With Asia's forces not really having this. And they decide to land in southern Argentina. As they quickly occupy lands. As they manage to make a successful landing in southern Argentina. With them managing to hold the front. They make a landing in the Philippines. As they start setting it up to be a staging ground. As they take over Borneo, and this island, and then over to these islands. But with Argentina and Brazil managing to raise a second army, another army just for this offensive, with the army starting to number close to each other. With Asia probably slightly ahead still. With them landing in the island of Java, a very populated island, with pretty much Russia's population. With Indonesia collapsing. And then Taiwan collapses. But it doesn't really matter, Japan's still standing, so they go after Japan to make this secured better. With the troops facing humiliation in the Asia front. With Sri Lanka defended by India completely collapsing, which really upsets the people in these countries, as panic starts spreading in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. And then moving back into Mongolia, and they take Ulaanbaatar again, but this time they manage to secure it better. As just to show it. Wait, wrong color. as they set up a naval blockade along these lands. Here, over here, 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 and here they set up a naval blockade, basically showing they control the waters now. As they start taking air supremacy over Southeast Asia into Thailand, Cambodia, and southern Vietnam, they launch an offensive into what's left of Malaysia and Singapore, and then they move up into Thailand and southern Vietnam and Cambodia, meaning they have another frontier. But at this point, they're impossible for either side to really win. They keep capturing lands. Doesn't mean they're getting closer to victory. As Pakistan becomes an occupation zone, and the occupied territory starts to extend into these areas, and down into here, a stalemate finally breaks out after they land in Korea and can't get past here. And Cambodia falls and they start entering Laos. A stalemate manages to break out, with neither side really being able to make significant gains. Although they, due to their economic blockade thing going on, they manage to take more land. As here, their grip is weakening, but luckily, they're almost through this. Them taking over this island and moving into Manchuria to make an encirclement, trying desperately to break out of the situation to be able to have a massive, meaningful advance, but instead they get stuck again. And then they try to advance again, getting a bit further, with a pro-North American anti-war rebels rising up into India. These rebels continue north, which leads to India withdrawing from the Asian Pact, which leads to two things happening: these forces advancing across the lands, and the rest of the land, including Delhi, gets captured into the puppet called the People's Republic of India. And quickly it becomes these borders. At the anti-war forces withdrawing from the war, quickly ending up in a state of war, and basically betrayal has happened. With them moving back to take their capital, because, well, yeah, hard to run a country without your capital. With the anti-war forces ending up in the conflict, which literally ended up like a giant stump, with these nations surrendering, and India finally managing to get all the way to here. The front line freezes again, before continuing as they take Bangladesh over and move into these areas, with them failing to advance in this front. They continue their advances in this front, but realizing this is probably being sacrificed to hold on longer, with China ending up with a front line like this, and they land here, with them moving in to take over here, and they rapidly advance, taking these lands over. And well, at this point, the front line completely collapses, and thus meaning the West has been victorious. Unlikely either side would be able in real life to come to a victory, considering China is literally an economic and military machine, although not tested, so who knows how effective it actually is, Maybe it's just as effective as Russia, who knows? Hard to say. But like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, India, China, Japan, and South Korea, with North Korea's military numbers, would be a pretty unstoppable force. But that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, but not until you subscribe. Bye, guys!